Israel is today truly fighting a multi-front war. A barrage of UAVs fired by Hezbollah wounded several Israelis in the Galilee. A terrorist murdered a Jewish co-worker by bludgeoning him with a hammer in Samaria. A terrorist entered Tel Aviv from Nablus with a huge bomb strapped on his back. It exploded early, killing the terrorist and wounding a cyclist. Hamas claimed credit and said there would now be a rash of suicide bombings. All this amid expanding IDF operations in the 318-day Gaza war. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken arrived in Israel intent on finalizing the elusive hostage-for-ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that could also diffuse threats of Iran and Hezbollah that could spiral into a regional war. Blinken said this is the decisive moment. Ahead of his meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Blinken, Prime Minister Netanyahu was sticking to his demands and called for pressure on Hamas to accept Israeli conditions in hostage-for-ceasefire talks. Netanyahu appeared to lower expectations for an agreement and said that tough negotiations were ongoing.
במקביל, מנהלים משא ומתן לשחרור חטופינו. זו משימה מוסרית ולאומית ראשונה במעלה. אנחנו מנהלים משא ומתן מורכב מאוד, כשבצד השני עומד ארגון טרור רצחני, חסר עכבות וסרבני. אבל אני רוצה להדגיש, אנחנו מקיימים משא ומתן ולא מתן ומתן. יש דברים שאנחנו יכולים להיות גמישים לגביהם, ויש דברים שאנחנו לא יכולים להיות גמישים לגביהם, ואנחנו מתעקשים עליהם. אנחנו יודעים היטב להבדיל בין השניים.
Hamas put out an official statement rejecting the latest hostage proposals discussed in Doha over the weekend. The terror group blamed Prime Minister Netanyahu for putting up new obstacles in the talks. The U.S., Egypt, and Qatari mediated talks were held last week in Doha and will continue this week in Cairo. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken arrived in Israel for his 9th visit since the start of the war. His first meeting was with President Herzog. Blinken is pressing for a deal between Israel and Hamas that would at the same time lower the potential of an Iranian strike on Israel and regional war.
This is a decisive moment, probably the best, maybe the last opportunity to get the hostages home, to get a ceasefire, and to put everyone on a better path to enduring peace and security. I'm here as part of an intensive diplomatic effort on President Biden's instructions to try to get this agreement to the line and ultimately over the line. It is time for it to get done. It's also time to make sure that no one takes any steps that could derail this process.
Blinken said that the threats from Iran and Hezbollah remain, but his focus is on finalizing the hostage-for-ceasefire deal.
I know this is a fraught moment in Israel, with deep concern about the possibility of attacks coming from Iran, coming from Hezbollah, and other sources. But the focus of my visit is intensely on getting the hostages back, getting the ceasefire done. It is time for everyone to get to yes and to not look for any excuses to say no.
At the opening day of the Democratic National Convention, presumptive presidential candidate Kamala Harris was asked if she thought that Netanyahu wanted a deal. She said this.
Last question. Do you think Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is ready to agree to a ceasefire deal?
I will not speak for him, but I will tell you that these conversations are ongoing and we are not giving up. And we are going to continue to work very hard on this. We got to get a ceasefire and we got to get those hostages out.
Turning north, where the deadly cross-border exchanges continue between Israel and Hezbollah. 5 people were reported injured during an attack by a swarm of drones. A number of Israelis were wounded this morning as a barrage of rockets and UAVs were launched by Hezbollah toward the Upper Galilee and Western Galilee, including the city of Nahariya. A fire broke out due to one of the UAVs, causing some of the injuries. Earlier, fighter jets attacked launchers of the Hezbollah terrorists in the Kabria area in South Lebanon, from which launches were made toward the Upper Galilee area. In another attack in the Sheba area, fighter jets attacked and destroyed a weapons warehouse used by Hezbollah. Turning to day 318 of the war in Gaza, the IDF is expanding operations where Hamas has managed to fire rockets toward Israel. The 98th Division intensified Gaza raids following intelligence on terror activity and rocket launches. Operations expanded in Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balach. A paratrooper was seriously wounded in the fighting by an anti-tank missile. Troops are continuing their search for more underground tunnels. Supported by heavy fire, troops destroyed dozens of terror infrastructures and eliminated terror cells. The 7th Brigade has advanced toward the outskirts of Deir al-Balach in central Gaza after neutralizing dozens of terrorists and destroying underground tunnels in northern Khan Yunis. Throughout the day, sirens sounded in the south, including in the Nir Oz and Nirim areas. No injuries were reported. And we are now joined by the president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, Dan Diker, my good friend. So much to ask and so little time, so let's get right to it, Dan. Secretary Blinken says it's a decisive moment and a hostage ceasefire agreement must be achieved. Will he have his way?
Well, it's an open question, Steve. I think there's a pretty substantial misunderstanding about the price that Israel is being pressured to pay for agreeing to what is essentially a Hamas initiative for which there is support in the West, and that is for the unknown number of live hostages that are proposed to be returned. And the number is not known. It could be 15, it could be 18, it could be 30. But let's bear in mind that Israeli intelligence assessment...
Dan, it's probably decreasing by the day. The number is probably becoming lower by the day. Every day we wait.
It could well be, Steve. And what is very clear, though, is if this multi-stage deal is done, it would essentially be a death sentence for the majority of hostages still being held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So there's a huge price to be paid. And I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is also concerned about the Philadelphia route, because if Israel gives up the Philadelphia route, Hamas rearms, resupplies, and Israel is essentially, from a cognitive point of view and a physical point of view, lost the war.
So essentially you're saying Bibi should say no to the Americans at this point?
I'm not offering, Steve, I'm not offering a policy solution. I'm barely trying to contextualize the deal that many in the international media do not contextualize. Everyone's talking about the hostage deal. This is not a hostage. This is not the hostage deal. It leaves the vast majority of hostages in captivity in Gaza, subject to a 6 to 8 week waiting period, which Prime Minister Netanyahu and many of those around him are sure that we will never reach because of the Hamas.
We need to get to
the price that
I need to ask you a few more questions,
will
Dan.
go up exponentially.
I need to ask you a few more questions. The threats from Iran and Hezbollah of attacking Israel are still out there, perhaps delayed, waiting the outcome of ceasefire talks. Is the U.S. trying to leverage the potential agreement to avoid the reprisals and an expansion of the war?
The U.S., in our view, Steve, is trying to, in their view, avoid a regional war. But I think what's clear is that a regional war has already been launched by the Iranian regime and their multi-front proxy terror organizations. It seems right now, with Hezbollah intensifying the ring of fire and the depth of fire, that they are, with great adventure and confidence, increasing to Israel's north and Israel's center, as well as Hamas continuing to fire rockets and continuing to fight with rather robust terror troops in Gaza. It seems that the only way that Israel can change the strategic balance in the north is through a very high-powered military campaign.
So
this
Dan,
is what the United States does not want.
So let me ask you this, Dan, because before we run out of time, the situation in the north is truly intolerable. Today, a swarm of UAVs injured a group of Israelis in the Galilee. 318 days of provocations. How can it be that a regional superpower like Israel hasn't initiated a strike on Hezbollah already?
Israel has initiated a strike, but it has limited itself as to the expansiveness of this military operations until such time that Israel is ready. Remember, Steve, the prospect of a much larger military conflict is very real, and it seems that the Iranian regime again has placed a ring of fire around Israel. So it'll be up to Israel to decide when the best time it has in order to change the strategic balance Obviously, it cannot continue this way in the north. No country in the world can live, especially a teeny country like Israel, which is 22,000 kilometers, including the territories of Judea and Samaria. It cannot live like this, and obviously something very substantial needs to happen to change it. And it doesn't seem that diplomacy is going to change the strategic balance with 80,000 Israelis, refugees in their own country.
Dan, I'm sorry we're out of time, but I did want to take one last second to say that I'm so glad to see you back in action after back surgery. Good to have you with us. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
In Samaria, the IDF is searching for the terrorists responsible for the grisly murder of an Israeli civilian yesterday in the Bar On Industrial Park, where they worked together in the same factory. The Israeli victim was identified as 38-year-old father of three, Giron Perry, from the community of Kedumim. Perry is an IDF reservist who served in the Gaza war. According to the police, the terrorist attacked Perry with a hammer and then stole the victim's handgun and fled the scene. The attacker reportedly had a work permit to enter Israeli-controlled areas of Samaria, and he worked alongside Perry. Since October, 27 people, including Israeli security personnel, have been killed in terror attacks in Israel, Judea, and Samaria. An additional 5 members of the security forces were killed in clashes with terror operatives in the territories. A bomb exploded in Tel Aviv last night, resulting in 1 fatality. Authorities have named the incident a terror attack, calling on citizens to remain vigilant. The terrorist is reportedly from Nablus, but he has not been identified. Hamas and Islamic Jihad have taken responsibility for the attempted attack and are vowing a wave of suicide bombings. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman has more.
Police have confirmed today that a powerful explosive that detonated last night at around 8 p.m. on Lehi Road in Tel Aviv was a terror attack. The bomber, who is suspected of wearing the explosive, was killed in the incident, and a passerby was moderately wounded. Since last night, Tel Aviv District Police, officers from the Police Bomb Disposal Unit, and forensic investigators, in collaboration with the Israel Security Agency, have been working at the scene where police found the mutilated body of the suspected terrorist. Tel Aviv District Commander Deputy Commissioner Peretz Amar said the person had not been identified due to the severity of his injuries. Still, an organ has been sent to a lab for forensic identification.
כוחות שהגיעו למקום הבחינו באמת בגופה מרוטשת עם סימנים של פיצוץ שהיו על הקיר.
The second victim, who was riding a scooter nearby, suffered shrapnel wounds to his lower body. He is being treated in the hospital, and police hope he can provide information about what he saw. On Monday, police urged citizens to remain vigilant and to report any suspicious person or object.
And joining us now is retired Colonel Amit Asa, a former officer in the Israel Security Agency, the Shabak, with over 30 years of experience. Asa, a Palestinian, walked into Tel Aviv, he's from Nablus, with a big bomb on his back. He could have walked into a nearby synagogue, blown it up, and we would have dozens of dead Israelis. Is that what you think happened here?
Yes, of course, it was close also to the Bloomfield Stadium, and it was a game there, so maybe we didn't have the chance to interrogate him, as you know, but I think that the interrogation will lead to the people maybe that was connected to him, and maybe it will widen our intelligence information about it.
This is not a lone attack like a guy who rams his car or just stabs somebody randomly. He needs help to build a bomb.
This kind of activity needs help, needs somebody to build this bomb, needs somebody to give him the explosive, needs somebody to direct him where to go. It's a group of terror attack, and as we can hear, Jihad Islamic, Palestinian Jihad Islamic was taking the responsibility about it.
So your agency that you worked for will have to get into Nablus. We'll have to find the sources of where they were building those explosives. We'll have to eliminate an entire cell. And according to Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and I have no reason to doubt them in this case, they're saying this is going to be a whole group of suicide bombings like we had back in Intifada days.
Yes, we have to understand that the Shabak, the ISA, is working all day, night and day, every day in the year to locate this kind of cells, and they eliminated this kind of cells all the time. But at the end, we know that there is small gap maybe, and there is any people, maybe any members of Hamas or Jihad Islamic that we don't know about them. And another thing that we have to understand, that Jihad Islamic Palestinian is connected directly to Iran, is a Shia organization. So if we are talking
about...
about...
this bombing could have been the Iranian answer? Had it gone off, they would have claimed it as their response?
Yes.
Or even though Hamas is claiming credit, so who knows?
Yes, of course, we can't know really until the investigation will lead us to the main information and the right information that we will know about this activity. And it's not easy, but at the end, it's part of the things that we have to calculate. Maybe this is the answer that we were waiting for from Iran or Hezbollah.
And it's a big problem. I mean, I remember the last Intifada, and when the buses were blowing up in Jerusalem and all over the country, in fact, that's a very, very difficult thing to stop. If there's motivation and if they have the ability and the materials needed.
At first, we have to understand that the motivation is not just the material, not just the people, the motivation. The motivation is to hit this kind of bomb, suicide bomb, and the ISA, the Shabak, is working, as I said, every day and eliminate these kind of activities all day.
Part of the problem...
And we don't know about it.
Part of the problem must be related to the ease at which Palestinians can move from Judea and Samaria through the security barrier, if it exists even in certain areas, it's kind of porous, and enter into Tel Aviv as essentially unchecked. I mean, that's not security. Is there any chance of Israel at least sealing the borders that separate us, separate Israel from Judea and Samaria? It seems like a basic.
At the end, we understand that nothing can be sealed 100%. And they have also help with a lot of help inside Israel, maybe with other cells that connected to the terror organization. So at the end, we know that it can't be sealed on 100%.
Can't be sealed entirely. Before we finish, because we're just out of time, I know that you came out with a book. It's on Amazon. It's a novel.
It's a novel.
What's it called?
Infiltration Games.
Infiltration Games. For our viewers, Infiltration Games. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
Well, Israel has ensured the delivery of enough polio vaccine doses to protect Gazan children, despite growing international concerns. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman explains.
Despite concerns over the first case of polio diagnosed in Gaza, Israel has confirmed the entry of enough vaccine doses to cover more than 2.8 million people. IDF International spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani addressed calls from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for humanitarian pauses to allow a polio vaccination campaign. He stated that since polio was detected in wastewater in mid-July, Israel's COGAT has coordinated the delivery into Gaza of 9,000 additional vaccine vials, enough for over 90,000 people. In the coming weeks, 43,250 vials tailored to the virus found in environmental samples will arrive in Israel, with plans to enter Gaza. These doses will cover more than 1 million children in 2 rounds, totaling more than 2.1 million doses, according to Shoshani. The first polio case was found on Saturday in a 10-month-old baby in Deir el-Balah who had not been vaccinated. The World Health Organization reported that before the war, 99% of Gazan children were vaccinated against polio. While the rate has dropped, it was still holding at 90% in the first quarter of 2024.
Hamas hostage Romi Gonen's family gathered in Tel Aviv last night to celebrate her 24th birthday. The event coincided with the Jewish holiday of Tu B'Av, the holiday of love, aimed to give Romi and the other captors strength. More on that story from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
The family of captured Israeli Romi Gonen marked her 24th birthday in Tel Aviv Sunday evening with hundreds of guests. Romi's family said it planned the evening to give her strength and to remind the public of the hostages' plight.
We could choose stay at home and, be alone with our pain. But we chose different.
Today we're focusing on hope because we want to give her strength, her and every other hostage that maybe will see us.
Romi was abducted from the Nova Open Air Music Festival on October 7. Before contact was lost, Romi was able to call her family and inform them that she had been shot. Her father recalled the last words they heard were from the attackers, who spoke in Arabic, saying, "She is alive, let's take her." Her phone was later tracked to the Gaza Strip. Some 364 Israelis were murdered at the Nova Festival. Gonen is one of 115 Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza out of the more than 250 originally captured by the terror organization. More than a third of the remaining hostages are considered to be dead.
And we need to celebrate for her and to remind everyone that she's still alive and she still held captivity, and we need her to come home.
Last night and today, Israelis are celebrating Tu B'Av, the Jewish Valentine's Day. But for those whose loved ones are still in Gaza, like Gonen, the holiday brings little joy. In Tel Aviv, Ziv Abad, whose 27-year-old partner Elia Cohn was kidnapped from the Nova Festival, set up a romantic table on the beach last night. She sat on one side, and on the other, she placed a poster of Elia. The scene touched hundreds of passerby who stopped to offer condolences and help raise awareness of the hostages' situation. How can you celebrate Valentine's Day when the love of your life is not with you? Abad posted on Instagram. When will love defeat evil? When will Elia and all the other 114 hostages return to Israel? Former hostage Noor Argamani also marked the holiday with a message to her partner, Avinatan Or, who is still in Hamas captivity in Gaza. Alongside a picture of her kissing Or on the beach, Argamani wrote that she was wishing us many more kisses and days full of love, together and not apart.